Hi everyone, I'm Rockin' Robin, and today when I got up, I looked out my kitchen window and this is what I saw. I saw a cloudy, cool, very kind of blustery day, and I said, wow, I think I feel like making some beef stew. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to show you how to make some homemade, delicious beef stew. Okay, so let's start by going over the ingredients we're going to need for our recipe. So here's what we're going to need for our beef stew. We're going to need about 2 pounds of stew meat. Now with this meat here, the pieces of meat were quite large, and so I like to cut them into more bite-sized pieces, so that way I can get some stew meat in just about every bite. I like to distribute it out that way. And also I want to mention that I'm going to list all the ingredients and the measurements down below in the description, so that's where you can find all of those measurements. Now we're going to need some yellow onion. I've got a whole diced onion here. We're going to need some potatoes. You can use pretty much any kind you want, and again I cut these into somewhat bite-sized chunks. We'll also need some carrots, which I did the same thing, and some peas. Now I use frozen peas because I like the flavor better. I just think they just taste much better than canned. Next we'll need some some red wine, and we'll need some beef broth and some cooking oil to fry up the meat. Here I have some dried rosemary, some minced garlic, that's fresh garlic, some Worcestershire sauce, tomato paste, and some flour. And here I'm using gluten-free flour. It's a flour it's called Tom Sawyer, but you can use regular white flour if you like to do that. And that's it for our ingredients. So the first thing we want to do is coat our chicken. Now I'm going to use a Ziploc bag, and I'm going to put the flour in the bag, and then I'm going to put the meat in the bag, and that way it keeps it all together, and I can just kind of move it around, mush it around, and get the idea is to get the beef coated in the flour. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to go ahead and put the flour in first. Get it all in there. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm not going to put all the meat in because I think then it's going to be too difficult to coat it nicely. But I'm going to put maybe half of it in. Okay, so I'm going to zip this up. And I'm going to leave the air in the bag. I want the air in the bag so that it can just kind of float around. So see how I'm shaking this up? And just watch it until you see all the pieces are coated. Okay, now I'm going to take the pieces out, and I'm going to shake them a little bit. But you see how nice and easy that was to coat that beef? So I'm shaking it to get the excess flour off. So it's a quick way to do this. And then I'll do the second batch in just a second. So you can see I have a little bit of flour left in the bag, and I'm going to hang on to that. So now that we have our meat coated in flour, it's time to start browning the meat. So I have my frying pan here set on medium-high heat. I want the heat pretty high so that we can get that browning effect on our meat. And I'm going to add some oil to the pan. And you can see that it's starting to shimmer, so that's good. That's a good sign. That means it's hot. And I'm going to start adding the meat to the pan. Now, I don't want to add too much meat at a time. I want to just be able to cook a few pieces at a time. That way I can get them to brown nicely on all sides. So let's start off with something like about that much. That way I have room to turn them over and cook them nicely. What we're going to do here is we're going to get a nice caramelized, browned effect, which brings out a lot of flavor in your stew. Okay, so as they cook a couple minutes, you're not trying to cook the meat through, you're just browning it. Okay, so now I'm just going to flip it over to another side. Okay, you can see all the meat now is getting pretty browned on all sides, so I'm going to remove it to my pan. So I'm down to the last batch here, and you don't have to get every part of each piece browned. Just get most of it browned. You don't have to be perfect about it. So these look pretty good. I'm just going to take them out. So now I'm going to add a little more oil because there's not very much left. So I'm going to add some oil to the pan. And I'm going to add the onions. So I like to caramelize my onions a long time. It takes a lot of time, but I think it really brings out a lot of flavor. You can do this for just 3 or 4 minutes if you want, if you're in a rush. But I'll go as long as I can, which, you know, could be anywhere from 8 to 20 minutes. So I've been caramelizing the onions now for about, maybe I would say 20 minutes. And what that does is they start to change, they get brown, and they actually shrink in size. And they bring out this incredible flavor in your stew. You're gonna love it. It's amazing. If you could smell my kitchen right now, you would just be like, oh my gosh, what's for dinner? Let's eat. All right, so we're gonna get our garlic in there. And I'm going to spread it around so they can get to the heat. Stir it in with the onions, and I'm going to just cook this for another 3 minutes. Now remember the flour that I told you to hang on to after we were coating our meat? Well, now we're going to add it to our pan. So I'm just going to pour what's left in there into the onions and the garlic, and I'm going to stir it up. And this is going to act as more of a thickener to the stew. Now we move on to our tomato paste. And when you add that to the heat, it also sweetens it up a little bit, sort of caramelizes the sugars in this as well. Always looking for the flavor, always trying to improve it. That's what I like to do, make things taste fantastic. All right, so now it's time to add everything to our stew. We're going to put it all together. So I have my meat over here, and I'm going to add my onion mixture to this. Okay, so we're going to add everything to our pan except for the potatoes, the carrots, and the peas. They'll go in much later. So let's get our beef broth in there. Here's our wine. And I'm going to put the flame on. I'm going to put it on medium-high. I want to get this hot. I want to get everything simmering. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Here's my Worcestershire sauce. And get all of that in there. And our dried rosemary. Sprinkle that in. And so now we just want to stir everything to combine it and distribute everything. Okay, now I can see right off the bat that I'm going to need some more liquid just because once I add my peas and carrots and potatoes, I'm not going to have enough. So I'm going to add a little bit more. Probably another cup or 2, maybe half of this. I'm going to bring this up to, like I said, up to a boil, and then I'm going to lower it. Oh, and you know what else I need to add is some salt. Okay, so I'm going to add about, I would say probably a teaspoon of salt to that. And like I said, once I get it to a simmer or a boil, I'm going to turn the heat down and I'm going to simmer it, and we're going to cook this for 2.5 hours. So while the stew is simmering and all those flavors are coming together and really just melding together, it's going to be incredible. So while that's cooking, I'm going to go ahead and do some cleanup, and I'll see you in a little bit. Okay, it has been 2.5 hours since we covered our stew. I want you to have a look at this. It looks fantastic. It's thickening up. Now it's time to add the potatoes and the carrots. So just put those in gently, don't splash yourself. And get our potatoes. Whoops, got one overboard, come back here. And once we get these in here, we are going to cook this another 20 to 30 minutes because it's going to take that long for these potatoes to get soft. Okay, it's been 25 minutes since we added the potatoes and the carrots, and you can see that they're simmering nicely. Now our last addition is our peas. Now these are frozen, remember, so these are going to cool down our stew again. So it's going to be a good 10 minutes before we can serve this. So the stew is done. I pulled it off the stove, and boy, I tell you, my house smells amazing. Look at this. This is piping hot. And I'm going to go ahead and serve it up. I do want to mention that you want to, if you have the time, take the time to caramelize those onions like I showed you. And if you can do it for 20 minutes or 25 minutes, you're going to really appreciate the flavor that it puts into your stew. It is really amazing. Look at this. Wow, it's going to be a little bit hot for me to taste. I'm going to let it cool for a second. Let's give this a try. Wow, guys. I think the flavor is amazing. You're going to love this dish. Try it at home. Make it on a Sunday afternoon and have it for your Sunday dinner. You're going to love it. What would be really nice to serve this up with would be some nice French bread, like a baguette or something like that. It'd be perfect. That way you can use that to kind of sop up the nice gravy that we have here. So thanks for watching. Be sure and subscribe to my channel by clicking the link up there. And head on over to cookingmexicanrecipes.com where you can find more recipes that you can make at home. And also I have a newsletter there that's free that you can sign up for if you'd like. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.